time around. Mkhulu, can you hear us this time around?
Yes, I can hear you clearly, Kes.
Oh, I'm glad to say that we can hear you also. It's great to have you on our program. You know, we've been speaking about the fact that lockdown has to be initiated, the fact that it's a sacrifice that most Africans have to make during this very difficult time of COVID-19, and that it spells out a different idea of freedom. Mkhulu, what are your thoughts around that? And also the fact that we have to be careful even in this space of lockdown as African countries.
Oh, Thokoza Kesa, Mina Miti, the question I ask, what are the spiritual lessons that we as Africans have got to learn?
Sure.
Remember, Guti, according to the African calendar, iskhathi sokuzila lesi from March to June.
Can you explain for our other African listeners what we mean when you are referring to ukuzila?
It's somehow a hibernation, period where we focus on all matters that have to do with the spirit. Because the sun is in hibernation, so are we as people on earth. So that period started in March, it will end in June. So I think, these are the spiritual lessons that we as African people have got to learn and say, what does the Spirit say to us? Because things don't just happen, by mistake. You see, if this thing was a man-made, this virus, then it has nothing to do with nature. If it was a nature-created, virus, nature has got its ways on how to deal with these things, because the proximity of the sun and earth, that is when certain energies are prevalent here on earth. And another thing, when a crisis like this happens, what normally happens is that the president should have consulted all healers, the Western healers and the African healers, and find a solution, because you see, some of these things, the solution cannot come from physicality. You find that the solution is there in our spirit. What does the spirit of the season say? What we should be doing as African people. So for me, it's what lessons are we, learning from this as Africans, and how are we going to emerge? Are we going to emerge again as people who are following more the fleshy look, or are we going to incorporate the spirit of the continent in everything that we do?
Towards Mkhulu, but it's very interesting that you say that, because Africa has been busy. We've been called the dark continent, to be called different things in terms of an aspired continent with a youth demographic, and that's one thing that has been identified as a positive for the continent. But there's been a mix of things that have been happening on the continent that have been very worrying, and we've been very much out there and very much being a busy continent, and everyone is coming into our continent, plundering from it, going out of it, doing as they please in our wonderful continent. What do you think this time could teach us, especially when it comes to rest and reflection on continental ideals?
This time teaches us, us as a people to actually reconnect with the soul of the continent, reconnect with the spirit of the continent, because Africa, in general, it's the world, the continent of spirit. It was ruled by Amakosi, what we're exposed to. This democracy, it is a violation of human rights, because this democracy, this structure was actually formed to suppress the tried and tested governing system of the continent, which is Ubukosi. So, if violation of our human rights started when our leaders accepting, this structure that we are in, we are not going to express as Africans in terms of our spirituality and physicality, before we need to, create a parallel system that will allow full expression of this African spirit.
All right, let me come to our other guests. I didn't see the show going in this direction, Jane and Shanila. But let me come back